hungry today because for like a month I've had plans with people to go out for a little taco moment, which is supposed to be tomorrow, which is a Wednesday. But then last week I was talking to somebody in that group and they said, "Oh yeah, are you excited to go out next Tuesday?" And I said, "Oh, I thought it was Wednesday." And she said, "No, it's Tuesday." So I changed my little calendar and changed it from Wednesday to Tuesday. So then today I text the group and I'm like, "We getting tacos tonight?" And then she fucking responds and she goes, "Sorry, I messed up last week when I said Tuesday. It's definitely supposed to be Wednesday." And now I'm fucking mad because I was hyped up since yesterday that I was gonna get some fucking tacos tonight, and now instead I gotta make soup for dinner.
Hey, you could still make tacos for dinner.
No, I'm gonna make soup. I got a zucchini that's been rotting.
Don't eat that.
And it's not rotted, but it's been sitting.
When I lived in Pittsburgh for a summer when I was doing an internship, one of the people who lived in this sublet was really, really fucking gross. And she caused our entire kitchen to get swarmed with flies because she had a zucchini that had like fully rotted in the fridge and I couldn't find it. Eventually I took everything out of the fridge, I found it, and I was like, this is the fucking reason that all these flies are in here. I know it. I got rid of it, but they still wouldn't go away because now they were just like in the house. I bought a bunch of like fly traps and eventually I had to like contact the people who I was subleasing from and I was like, I can't handle this fly situation. Like, I need someone to come and help me with this because no one else who is living in this house is helping me with this.
Yeah.
And they like hired a professional cleaning crew to basically come clean the kitchen. And then everyone who we were subleasing from texted us and was like, guys, like that can never happen again. It is genuinely the grossest living situation I've ever lived in. I don't think anyone besides me cleaned the apartment for the entire 3 months I was living in Pittsburgh.
Speaking of disgusting horrors, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by one beloved sitcom father and one irredeemable monster. A podcast about how sometimes the real Fat Albert is the crimes we committed along the way.
Which one of us are you comparing to Bill Cosby here?
I mean, they're both Bill Cosby, but one was the veneer he put in front of the world, and the other was the horrible monster beneath.
And which one do you think you are?
Do I look like somebody who looks in the mirror and sees a beloved sitcom father?
No, but now
or an
I'm
irredeemable
sad.
monster?
No, you just made me sad.
I am worse than Hitler.
No. No.
Me with my fucking potential OCD where I'm like, I study children because I'm actually such a fucking disgusting monster that I actually want to hurt children. But I'm so deep into my fucking delusions that I can't even accept that about myself. So I've told myself it's because I want to protect children.
This is like my roommate loves to call me into her room to ask at least once every couple of weeks if I think she's evil. And I'm always like, Jazz, what could you have possibly done that qualifies as evil? And then she'll describe the most benign thing in the world. And then I'll remind her of something like someone who we know has done recently that like does qualify as evil. And she's like, so I'm not evil then. And I'm like, yep, see you in 2 business weeks when we have this conversation again. So like, if you would also like to have the bi-weekly Am I Evil check-in with me, Aubrey, I can pencil you in after Jazz.
That's like, I spent a full 3 days after this one work meeting where I basically had to assign a task to someone and it was taking forever because my boss was like, you gotta make a diagram, you gotta make a video, you gotta meet with them. And so it was just taking me forever because I was like, how do I make a video showing people how to copy and paste from one document to another? And then she was like, what's the holdup on this? And I mentally, my brain just shut down during that meeting. And I was like, I don't know. And then she emailed me later and was like, I don't understand what happened today. And I was like, I don't know. And so now I'm like, I think she hates me and wants to fire me. Probably not. She probably
Also,
doesn't care or think of me at all.
Not to be very sad, but a bunch of your colleagues keep losing their grants because of the Trump administration, so they can't afford to lose more people.
I mean, facts. We've had 2 diversity supplements canceled in a week.
Yeah.
The hammer has not fallen to me yet.
Yeah, it's good. It's Aubrey's getting affected by that side of things. So far, well, that's not true. I couldn't get paid for a long time by a theater company I worked for because of changes to the Small Business Administration. So but nothing horrific has happened in my freelance theater directing career because of the NEA shenanigans, but I'm sure that's coming soon.
You know, it may come for us all, unfortunately. So this is part 2 of our series about fat suits in the media. Today's episode focuses on the character of Fat Albert, which is sort of tangentially tied to fat suits because of the 2003 film Fat Albert, in which Fat Albert is depicted in the real world by the actor Kenan Thompson, who's wearing a fat suit. And I watched this movie last night. I loved this movie as a kid. I had really fond memories of it. This movie fucking sucks, but I will but I will say that I think the actual like fat suit itself is maybe the best of the fat suits we've talked about. Like, of all the fat suits we talked about in the last episode, when I watched Fat Albert, I was like, this is okay. This is fine.
I have not engaged with any Fat Albert media, and my only context for Fat Albert is every time on The Office when Michael calls Jim, hey, it's Fat Albert. That's all I got.
All right. So, I was at first going to mention Fat Albert in part 1, but I went on so many fucking side quests about Fat Albert that I instead decided to dedicate this entire episode to Fat Albert and the numerous side quests that are related to Fat Albert. It's gonna be a journey today, guys. I'm just hoping you're gonna trust me as we go through this journey together and you can understand the glimpse into my twisted mind.
Aubrey told me this is gonna be a true crime episode, but not in the way that we think.
Yeah.
And I have fear in my bones.
Yeah. So, also, I didn't really realize until I looked up Fat Albert that Fat Albert was created by Bill Cosby. My brain had just somehow blocked that information out, even though when I watched the Fat Albert movie last night, Bill Cosby is incredibly relevant and central to the plot of the movie, so I don't know how my brain just disconnected those two.
Actual Bill Cosby or a character who he plays?
Actual Bill Cosby plays himself in the Fat Albert movie. We're gonna get into this at the end.
I love M. Night Shyamalan.
The Fat Albert movie is a piece of garbage shit movie, but that's it. There's no but.
Okay.
It just is.
Sure.
I guess and Bill Cosby is also in it. Thankfully only for like 2 scenes, but enough that you're like, ah!
I see.
So, Fat Albert was one of the most popular Saturday morning cartoons of the 1970s. Many people of, like, Gen X, maybe, like, late boomers, remember this cartoon and this character very fondly. I was born in 1996, so my only real exposure to this character is the 2003 movie, but we're gonna get into that at the end. This is just me saying that Fat Albert is a character who, at one point in time, was very culturally relevant, tried to be culturally relevant again in the early 2000s, and now will never be culturally relevant again because it's created by Bill Cosby, and Bill Cosby is central to Fat Albert.
Did Bill Cosby do something wrong?
Bill Cosby did do something wrong.
Oh.
What I think is interesting about Fat Albert is that his weight is never in question. He is fat. His name is quite literally Fat Albert, but all of the clips I've seen from the original source material I think are very interesting because Fat Albert is virtually never depicted with any of the negative stereotypes of fat people. He's often contradictory to them and displays kindness, athleticism, leadership, like genuinely probably one of the best depictions of a fat person I've seen in media, which is obviously upsetting in this context. So, Mackenna, this brings me to this question of how much do you want me to talk about Bill Cosby? Because I've got small, medium, and Fat Albert size scripts about Bill Cosby.
I mean, fuck it. We ball. I can always cut shit later.
All right. So,
guys, I edit this podcast. Fun fact. You're not getting the uncut raw version of the podcast where we just absolutely fuck up 90 times.
Yeah, where I have to say the same sentence 6 times and then I finally say it right, but it's still a little bit wrong.
Or my cat is screaming to either be let in or let out. And so there's moments of me just going, God fucking damn it, Smalls. God.
So, Bill Cosby is an actor, comedian, and entertainment personality who is now retired. He's well known for creating the Fat Albert character and also The Cosby Show, which was a sitcom that I fucked with heavily as a child, and many people did as well.
I didn't because I always knew.
Yeah, Mackenna always knew. She saw Bill Cosby and went, I've got a sense.
I could see behind the veneer even as a little lad. No, I was just more of a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air guy.
Yeah. So The Cosby Show is a sitcom about the Huxtable family of 7 people. So you have Father Cliff Huxtable, played by Bill Cosby, who is an OBGYN. And yeah, I know.
What?
McKenna just made a big face at that.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, canonically Cliff Huxtable is an OBGYN. And like that's like a thing that in the show is like, oh, he delivers babies and helps women. Yeah. And his wife Claire Huxtable, who's an attorney, and their 5 children who span various ages from like small early childhood to post-college. So big age range of the children. Genuinely, if in isolation, I trust that people are going to know that when I'm talking about media from Bill Cosby that I enjoy or has positive aspects, that is in no way an endorsement of Bill Cosby. Genuinely,
Aubrey loves Bill Cosby. She loves Kevin Spacey. She loves Harvey Weinstein. They're all of her favorite creators.
Yeah, I stan.
Every movie Aubrey likes was directed by Bryan Singer.
I am on the Epstein list.
I have a Zoom background that says, it says, like, we all went to Epstein's Island.
Oh my god. So The Cosby Show is genuinely a great sitcom. So I got my minor in family and human development, and in my undergrad, I actually knew professors who would show clips of The Cosby Show in their classes because these were classes about child development and parenting, because oftentimes the show did model really good conversations between parents and children of various ages about various topics. Bill Cosby's whole thing was creating programming that had an educational slant to it, and he was given a fuck ton of honorary degrees in education and child development because of the nature of his programming. The Cosby Show was beloved by many people, and many people sort of considered Bill Cosby to be America's dad, basically. However, Bill Cosby has been the subject of many publicized sexual assault allegations. The earliest incidents allegedly take place in the mid-1960s and span to 2008. Cosby's been accused by numerous women of rape, drug-facilitated sexual assault, sexual battery, child sexual abuse, and sexual misconduct. Over 60 women have claimed to be sexually abused by Cosby, and that is a conservative number, as there are very likely many, many more people who were sexually abused by Bill Cosby. In a 2015 deposition, Cosby himself admitted to casual sex involving the recreational use of Quaaludes with a series of young women, and he acknowledged that his dispensing of this drug was illegal. He was put on trial for 3 Class 2 felony charges of aggravated indecent assault, which ended in a mistrial in 2017. The women who have come forward about their experiences with Bill Cosby have stories that span more than 5 decades and are all remarkably similar. Typically, it would involve Cosby inviting the woman back to his hotel room or his home and offering them a cup of coffee or some sort of alcoholic beverage, which was spiked with drugs, oftentimes Quaaludes, and then allegedly sexually assaulting the victim as she is impaired or unconscious. The sexual assault allegations against Cosby became more public, actually, after a 2014 comedy routine by Hannibal Buress became viral, after which many additional claims were made afterward. Basically, there's this viral clip of Hannibal Buress doing a stand-up routine where he references Bill Cosby raping women, and it goes super viral, and people are like, holy shit, there's an entire history here. and the news just kind of blows up, and then more and more women come forward and just continue to come forward about these harrowing experiences that they've had.
Yeah, I remember being in 2014 when that clip went viral, and I was standing in the high school parking lot waiting for my brother to walk over with his baseball stuff. And it was like, I think the first time where I really was interfacing with like these sort of open secrets in Hollywood that then haven't really made it to the broader American and world audience. Like, I think about the same stuff with like R. Kelly and Diddy, where like everyone in Hollywood circles knew about this type of stuff, and like Harvey Weinstein, like they all knew that this stuff was going on for a long time, and it was sort of like an open secret amongst people in Hollywood, but it just never broke containment. And it's just really fascinating that the way that this broke containment was Hannibal Buress doing stand-up.
Yeah. And I also do just want to take a minute to talk about, like, it is good that people are aware of Bill Cosby having done this, right? Like, in the wake of these allegations, numerous organizations have severed ties with him. His awarded honors and titles have been revoked by like over 25 universities. Reruns of The Cosby Show and other shows featuring Cosby have been pulled from syndication. Basically, like, people do not fuck with Bill Cosby anymore. I think that that is a good thing. What I do want to point out is that there is something, it is like the racism of it all, with the fact that Bill Cosby, there's this immediate response, right? But then you have people like Armie Hammer still being in movies. Or isn't Michael Fassbender also an abuser and also in movies? And like...
Yes, I would say those situations are very different, because a thing that is true about Hollywood is they don't care about domestic violence. Not that they don't care about domestic violence, but like in like a post-Me Too era, a sexual assault allegation tends to get more credence than a domestic violence allegation. And I don't exactly know why. I have theories about like people not thinking it being like a personal dispute versus being something that like using your position in Hollywood to access these ways in order to harm someone. Also, like they just get more news attention. Mm-hmm. But I think a good comp is how heavily publicized and immediately Jonathan Majors, when he assaulted his girlfriend, like he immediately was out. I mean, they still release Magazine Dreams, and so we'll see if he continues to try to make a comeback, but like he immediately lost all of his Marvel stuff, whereas like there's a non-zero amount of white men who have done domestic violence in Hollywood who nothing happens to at all. And that I think is the really tricky part. And I do think a part of the Bill Cosby thing too was that like it immediately shattered this image of him as this like America's dad. Mm-hmm. I do think it's very specific to that, like he is black, and I would be curious if it had happened to one of white America's dads, if the reaction has been the same. I just don't know. I can't think of a real comp to Bill Cosby in that specific regard.
Right. Like, you articulated the point I was trying to make really well, which is that, like, it is good that Bill Cosby has basically been exiled. I just wish that extended to all people who have done horrible things. Yet I think that there are people who have done horrible things who just sort of get the pass. And I think part of that is the additional scrutiny that's placed on people of color, and especially Black men. So I don't know.
There's this racist element of racist white people wanting these powerful Black figures to fail. Like, listen, I'm someone who's pretty sure O.J. Simpson murdered Nicole Brown Simpson.
Yeah.
Do I think there were not an amount of white people who were really excited to see O.J. Simpson fuck up? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And then that's why you get a lot of backlash in both the Bill Cosby situation and the O.J. Simpson situation, where there's a lot of Black Americans who are like, that cannot be true. This is just racism trying to take down one of our greats. And I think that's like part of what makes it really tricky is if we just let there be more Black people in these high profile roles in media, then there wouldn't be this attachment to like, no, this, he can't be bad. He can't be bad. This is just them trying to do racism against him. Whereas if there were more people, it wouldn't feel like such a loss when one of the few people who has managed to break through is, because that was the whole thing with Jonathan Majors too, is it's like, he just shot into stardom and then he did this horrific thing. And there was this, you know, community of like, hey, if he was a white guy, you guys wouldn't care so much about this. And it's like, yes, and we should care when it's a white guy. And that doesn't mean that Jonathan Majors should get away with this. And really what it's highlighting is that there should be more people of color given the opportunities that Jonathan Majors was given, so it doesn't feel like such a fucking loss when Jonathan Majors beats the shit out of his girlfriend. Yeah. Sorry this isn't very funny so far. It's really hard to make jokes when Aubrey is describing violent sexual assault allegations, but I'll find some later, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, Albert.
I had one other thing I wanted to say. I think what's also really interesting, kind of the whole open Hollywood secret thing, is also like the timeline with which people get information. I had felt like I was being gaslit by the world situation earlier this year when everyone was suddenly being like, Neil Gaiman did sexual assault? Because
we've known this.
Last year, there was this huge podcast series that dropped that detailed all of this. And I think there was maybe a New York Times article, and then this year I think the article was Vulture. I'm obviously misremembering details here. But it's like, this came out last year. But then I guess people didn't pay attention or didn't remember. So then when all of a sudden people were acting like it was a revelation that Neil Gaiman did sexual assault this year when more people came forward, I was like, wait, we already, am I going insane? We already did this. Yeah. But it's really because he didn't really face any professional consequences the first time it happened. And then when this second wave of people came forward, then he started facing professional consequences. And that's when everyone started paying attention. Yeah. But it was really crazy because I was like, what the fuck do you mean? We already knew this, but it was just like that information didn't make it to everyone the first time around.
Yeah, and I had been plugged into kind of Tumblr circles, and there had been murmurs about stuff for years. So to me, I was always sort of like, oh, there's something a little suspect here. And I think it's interesting how the information trickled out and then just became this avalanche of common knowledge.
My brain, this is really bad. My brain conflates Neil Gaiman and Stephen King all the time. And a friend recently texted me and was like, have you seen the trailer for the new Stephen King movie? I literally almost replied to them and was like, fuck Stephen King. Why are they making a movie of that piece of shit's book? And then I was like, wait, wrong guy. They're making a Stephen King movie. It's okay. So I do know that Stephen King and Neil Gaiman are different people. I do sometimes think they're the same man in my brain. And if I picture either of their face, I think I do picture the same man.
Stephen King, we apologize. You've been a beloved figure in my life. I know who you are. I know your face.
I know you wrote that scene about all those kids in the tunnels, and I have questions, Stefan.
I think that you were doing a lot of drugs and alcohol at the time of writing it, and I think your editor was like, fuck it, sure.
Steven, you can do whatever you want, buddy. That's awesome, man.
Keep the fucking books coming, Steven. We need this. So, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was the full name of the show, but everyone pretty much refers to the show as Fat Albert. It was an educational American animated television series created, produced, and hosted in live-action bookends by Bill Cosby himself, who also lent his voice to a number of characters, including Fat Albert. The show premiered in 1972 and aired up until 1985, with new episodes being produced sporadically during that time frame. So it's like a season would come out, there'd be a lull for a few years, and then, 40 new episodes, and then a lull, and then, just sort of back and forth for 13 years. The show is based on Cosby's remembrances of his childhood friends, focused on Fat Albert, who's known for his catchphrase, hey, 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 and his friends. The show features an educational lesson in each episode, emphasized by Bill Cosby's live-action segments. In addition, at the end of some of the early episodes, the friends would join in their North Philadelphia junkyard to play a song on their little cobbled together instruments that summarize the lesson of the show. So, if it's like, oh, we're learning about being nice to our friends, then at the end they all sing a song about being nice to your friends. As I've said, the show was enormously successful. It was really considered a quintessential Saturday morning cartoon. And the show was so successful that it led to Cosby creating a second animated series, Little Bill, in the late 1990s. Mackenna, this is our first rabbit hole. I fucking loved Little Bill. Do you know what Little Bill is?
I do know what Little Bill is. I immediately pictured Little Bill in my head. I remember Little Bill. I never watched the any Fat Albert concert, but I did watch Little Bill. Mm-hmm. But I did also, my brain immediately go, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. But that's Schoolhouse Rock. That's not a part of this.
That is different. I loved Little Bill. I honestly think Little Bill might have helped me become a not racist person because it was just an adorable little black child doing adorable things. His whole thing was just having a big imagination and being nice to people. I fucked heavy with Little Bill. So Little Bill was an American animated educational children's television series created by Bill Cosby. It was based on the Little Bill book series that was written by Cosby about the adventures of Little Bill. Cosby also composed some of the theme music, appeared in live action sequences, as well as the show's intro, and he voiced the recurring character of Captain Brainstorm. So the main character of Little Bill is Little Bill, who's a fictionalized younger version of Bill Cosby. Little Bill's personality was inspired both by Cosby himself and his son, Ennis Cosby. Little Bill's catchphrase was, "Hello, friend," and that was based on a greeting that Bill Cosby's son Ennis would say as a little kid. Mackenna, do you know anything about Ennis Cosby?
I do not know anything. Period. End of sentence. I know nothing.
I'm going to do a little rabbit hole about Ennis Cosby because I think he's an interesting person to talk about. So, Ennis William Cosby was born on April 15th, 1969, to actor and comedian Bill Cosby and his wife, Camille Cosby. He was the fourth of Bill Cosby's children with 3 older sisters, and when Camille was about to give birth to Ennis, Cosby was doing a live television special, and he says to his wife off stage, who's going into labor, "It had better be a boy, you hear, Camille?" And Camille goes, "Right," from off screen. Ennis attended George School, which is a private boarding school outside of Philadelphia, where he played football, basketball, lacrosse, and did track and field. What I think is really interesting about Ennis is that he suffered from undiagnosed dyslexia for much of his life and had really low grades, and this caused a ton of friction with Bill Cosby and Camille Cosby, both of whom had advanced education degrees. Bill Cosby would use his experience with Ennis to inform the writing of Theo Huxtable, who is the son of the Cosby family on The Cosby Show. And basically, Theo would have a plot line where he would struggle with school. There was a ton of friction between him and Cliff Huxtable, and then he gets diagnosed with dyslexia. And basically, it's actually a really great plot line. It's really sweet because it's basically Bill Cosby being like, I was wrong for blaming you for your poor grades for your entire life. And he felt really guilty for thinking that Ennis struggled academically because he had a character flaw when he really had a learning disability. So Ennis gets his dyslexia diagnosed when he's in Morehouse College in Atlanta, where a friend encourages him to get tested because he's like, yeah, you're not reading like a normal person. I think you should get tested for dyslexia. And this is something that fundamentally changes Ennis's life. He has a quote where he said, "The happiest day of my life occurred when I found out that I was dyslexic. I believe that life is about finding solutions, and the worst feeling to me is confusion." Basically, this pushes Ennis to be like, my passion in life is helping children who have learning disabilities. So he spends a summer semester in Putney, Vermont, undergoing intensive academic training at Landmark College, which is a private university established exclusively for students with learning disabilities. Ennis then returns to Morehouse, where he makes the dean's list, and his grade point average literally jumps from 2.3 to over 3.5. So massive change in his academic career once he gets diagnosed with dyslexia and is able to, start learning in a way that makes sense for him. So then in his free time while he's in college, Ennis tutors students at elementary and high schools, and he earns a bachelor's degree, which he then follows with a master's degree from Columbia in 1995. While at Columbia, he tutors students who are struggling with learning disabilities. Ennis was working toward his doctorate in special education at Columbia University's Teachers College, and he planned to set up a school for children with learning disabilities, but unfortunately he wasn't able to do that because he was murdered on January 16th, 1997 in a botched robbery. So this is the true crime segment of the podcast because I think that Ennis Cosby's life and death is incredibly tragic, and there's a whole media circus that follows his murder. So, in January 1997, Ennis was in Los Angeles during the winter break from his classes at Columbia, and in the early hours of January 16th, after visiting friends in the city, he starts driving north on Interstate 405. At approximately 1 a.m, he pulls off of the freeway because he gets a flat tire and he needs to change his tire. He gives a call to his girlfriend who drives to meet him, and she parks behind him to light the area with her headlights while he changes the tires. And while Ennis is doing that, a man comes up to her window and says, "Open the door or I'll hurt you." And Stephanie drives away. So she drives about 50 feet away, and then she hears a gunshot and immediately drives back to Ennis's location. And Ennis had been shot in the head in a failed robbery attempt. His death is immediately wildly publicly reported, and there is an outpouring of public outrage and support for the Cosby family. President Bill Clinton, Vice President Al Gore, all people are calling Bill Cosby to offer condolences. What is really fucked up is that the national media justifiably receives criticism for its early coverage of Ennis Cosby's murder. Basically, a news helicopter from the local station KTLA captured aerial footage of Cosby's dead body on the road, and it includes close-up depictions of his body. The footage was also broadcast by CNN later that day, and this, of course, generates outrage from CNN viewers who had not been warned that graphic footage of a dead body was going to be shown to them. They released an apology on air for the broadcasting of that footage.
This is just such an ongoing issue also, and that has extended from traditional news media also onto the internet. The videos of these violent deaths get circulated online. Everyone's like, you have to watch this video of this, and it's like, no, we actually should not be using these tragedies to generate clicks and views and being so cavalier and casual with showing these violent murders when it is the violent murder of a black man. I don't know what it would take for this to stop, but I feel like every cycle when this sort of thing happens, you get the wave of, here's all the images and videos of this incident, and then it's like, nope, don't share those, and then everyone, Men in Black, deletes that memory, and then a year later when it happens again, it goes, everyone share this video, wait, don't share that video, that's bad, bloop, and we're on to the next.
Right, this idea that part of allyship or advocacy needs to involve watching graphic depictions of murder take place, and I don't think that you need to. I think that it's enough to be horrified by the fact that it exists. Another thing that's interesting about this case, so at first, they don't catch the man who killed Ennis, and Gray Davis, who's the lieutenant governor of California, announces a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Ennis's killer, which leads to this big media conversation about, first of all, this offer of taxpayer funds as a reward, and this idea of, like, why a reward for this celebrity's son who got murdered and not for any of the other people who get murdered ever.
Yeah, I mean, same conversation with the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO last year, where there was money offered for any information on his capture. And also, the person who called in about Luigi Mangione didn't ever see any of that money. So don't assume the government's going to give you money. They will literally try to weasel out of any way of having to do that.
Yeah, they literally won't. And so the Cosby family basically responds to this, and they're like, hey, like, we are able to fund a reward ourselves. Like, we're not interested in doing so. Please do not offer rewards. So the city of Los Angeles pulls the $25,000 reward that they put forth, as well as a $15,000 reward from Los Angeles County. They withdraw those. However, tabloid newspapers The Globe and the National Enquirer offer a $200,000 and $100,000 reward, respectively, for information. Those are not withdrawn, and yes.
I would love to be able to Thanos snap the National Enquirer out of existence.
Yeah, well, it's actually the National Enquirer. That reward is claimed by an acquaintance of the shooter who provides information that leads to the man's arrest in March of 1997. He has a Ukrainian name that I'm gonna fucking butcher right now, but...
She's gonna butcher it because Aubrey's pro-Russia.
No! It's Mikhail Markasev. He's 18 years old at the time. Markasev was tried and convicted of first-degree murder and attempted robbery on July 7th, 1998, and he's sentenced to life in prison the following month. He actually maintains his innocence until 2001, when he finally admits to committing the murder. He sends a letter asking that all appeals in his case stop. He basically says that he killed Ennis and that he wants to do the right thing by confessing. The quote that I have from that letter is, "Although my appeal is in its beginning stages, I don't want to continue with it because it's based on falsehood and deceit. I am guilty and I want to do the right thing. More than anything, I want to apologize to the victim's family. It's my duty as a Christian, and it's the least I can do after the great wickedness for which I am responsible." We will talk more about Little Bill and Fat Albert, but I just wanted to highlight the case of Ennis Cosby because I find it compelling for multiple reasons. At the end of the day, this was a tragedy of a PhD student who was probably going to do really good work in this area of children with learning disabilities before getting killed. And the fact that he was killed before he had a chance to do it is literally my nightmare. I actually don't know if I've ever told you this, Mackenna, but the day I started grad school, I get an email that's sent out to everybody. And basically there had been this grad student who had graduated in May, and it was August at this time, and this person was riding their bike, and they were hit by a car and killed. And I remember thinking multiple things. The first was like, oh my God, like, this person just spent 6 years in grad school, they graduated, they were killed, and all that happened was an email blast. like that, like it really grounded me in this way, where I think some people get really caught up in grad school and academia, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, if you die, there will be an email sent out to everyone about the fact that you died. People who know you will be sad, but people like me at the time, who are just starting and don't know you at all, it doesn't mean anything.
There were a few people who died, who were students at Kenyon, who died while I was there, or like had just graduated, who died while I was there. And those email blasts about like a dead person around your age, who like go to school with you. The one that I like specifically think of is there was a girl who was hiking while she was abroad and died. It's so bad because I feel like, especially when you're that age, like when you're like in your like teens, early 20s, like it does become very like your own mortality focused and not focused on the other person. It's very much like I could die and not like this is so tragic that they died. And I do like reflect back on my reactions to those incidents and I'm like, wow, I was always so sad for those people, but I never knew any of them personally. And so I was very like, I could die. And it's like, no shit, idiot, you could die at any time.
Yeah.
But also, speaking of, I know a non-zero amount of people around my age who have died solo hiking. And by that, I mean, I know 3 people who were under the age of 25 who died while solo hiking. If you're on a hiking trip, go hike by yourself and break off from the rest of the group. Don't do that. It is incredibly dangerous. Be safe, stay with your group. Do not go solo hiking if you are in a big hiking trip, especially if you are not like an incredibly experienced hiker. But don't do it anyway. Don't do that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I find really tragic about Ennis's death specifically is like, I have this like nightmare a little bit where like if I got hit by a bus today, somebody like people who I know professionally, right? They would be like, wow, she was just getting started. Like she didn't really have a chance to do any of the things that she wanted to do. And that is just a huge nightmare for me. I think just because I'm somebody who has a lot of aspirations and the idea of like unrealized potential is something that I find terrifying, and it's that fear that motivates me to do things. And I think that's why I am so deeply struck when I think about Ennis Cosby's death, is that it's like, man, like he had this whole history of like learning he had dyslexia, doing all this advocacy for children, wanting to get a PhD so that he could probably further educational materials to help kids, and he just didn't get to do it. And that fucking sucks.
Yeah. And I think also like grand scheme, like he's just not alive anymore. Like, and that like
yeah.
It goes to show like it really doesn't matter who you are when it comes to these like random acts of violence, because that could have been anyone. Yeah. It just happened to be him, and it had nothing to do with him being Bill Cosby's son. It had nothing to do with him being, you know, a PhD. It just was like a desperate 18-year-old.
Yeah. And I also just think it's really sad that, like, Little Bill is, I think, actually an incredibly touching legacy to leave behind, but, like, in the context of, like, Ennis Cosby's life and his death, but the fact that his dad is a serial rapist doesn't let him have that, and I just think that also sucks and is bad.
That sucks.
So anyway, R.I.P. Ennis Cosby, you're Little Bill to me. I know Little Bill's inspired by your dad, but your dad kind of sucks. So when I think about Little Bill and all the happiness Little Bill gave me, I'm going to claim that that's you giving me that happiness.
Also with Little Bill, I was on the Wikipedia page because that's what I do sometimes. And I like that Tyler James William from Abbott Elementary was the voice of he was the middle child in Little Bill's family, and I like Tyler James Williams.
I love that.
Also, Little Bill had a little hamster.
Yes.
And I couldn't remember the hamster's name, but apparently the hamster's name was Elephant, and I think that's very cute. I love when animals are named after other animals.
That is very cute, and I didn't remember that, so I like that. So Little Bill aired on Nickelodeon from 1999 to 2004, had reruns until 2006, then it moved to the Noggin Network in 2007, and aired until 2014 when it was pulled because of the allegations against Cosby. If you're like, what's Noggin? You're not a real one. This was this channel that fucking rocked. It basically had preschool shows in the morning, but then tween and teen shows for the rest of the day. The teen block was called The N, and the N website had some of the fucking best internet games of all time. If you were on Quizilla Quizilla and the N. That was my fucking shit, bitch.
I did so much Quizilla and I did so much the N. The N was a great website. Like unreally, like it's kind of, I just don't, they don't have things like that for the youths anymore. And that's why they're all evil now.
I'm absolutely fucking ecstatic that this is a shared childhood experience between us.
Yeah!
So first of all, Quizilla. Do you remember all the Quizilla quizzes that were like 7 minutes in heaven?
Yes, of course. It was like fan fiction, but in quiz format.
That was my fucking sexual awakening, was replaying the Quizilla 7 minutes in heaven quizzes until I got the person I wanted.
Yeah.
Do you remember the end? Okay, so on the end, do you remember they had these two games? One was like a university simulator and one was like a high school simulator. Oh my fucking god. And then there was this other game. I forget what it's called, but I was so fucking obsessed with it. I actually found it and played it recently. But basically the premise is like, you're the new person and you're moving into this town and you can date the people in the town. And and the mechanic is that there's like cards and you get into fucking beef with people, but then you use the cards to win arguments.
Yes.
Do you remember who you would date in that game?
No, but I can like picture the graphics. It like when you, as soon as you said the end, like it was that game that I pictured. Like the graphics of that town are so good. It's so freaking sick, man.
I remember I got such a deep rabbit hole trying to find a browser version of this game, which I did end up finding. I found a Reddit thread where somebody had contacted people who worked at the fucking like production team for that game and tried to find offshoots of what they were doing. Oh my god. That game, it was called The Hookup.
Yes, The Hookup was great. I also really liked Slasher. That was on.
Slasher was so fun! So anyway, Noggin merged with Teen Nick in 2009 and we lost the website, and that really permanently devastated me.
There was something that happened similarly with like the Barbie universe of games, like My Scene and stuff, where when that website kind of imploded and all the good games went away, and I was like, they hate me personally and they're doing it to spite me, Mackenna Goodrich.
Yeah, the Barbie games used to be fucking awesome. And this is why I'm like, I want girl games like that back.
Yeah.
I need them back.
I need you to play the Monster Prom game that we talked about.
Oh yeah, the dating sim?
Yeah.
I'll play it and do a little review. Email us informedattraction@gmail.com and I will consider it if we get more than one email. If more than one person requests us to do anything, we'll probably do it.
Depending on what it is.
That was our little rabbit hole into Little Bill and N.S. Cosby. Now going back to the actual subject of our episode, Fat Albert. So the character of Fat Albert first appeared in Bill Cosby's stand-up comedy routine Buck Buck, as recorded in his 1967 album Revenge. The stories were based upon Cosby's tales about growing up in inner city North Philadelphia. In 1969, Cosby and veteran animator Ken Mundy brought Fat Albert to animation in a primetime special called Hey Hey Hey, It's Fat Albert. The special aired on NBC, and it was a hybrid of live action and animation. The music for the special was written and performed by jazz pianist and keyboardist Herbie Hancock in 1969. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just like how in Tommy Boy he says Herbie Hancock.
That's what Herbie Hancock is most famous for. You're right.
Is being referenced in 90s movie Tommy Boy.
Yep.
Yeah. So the animated portions of the special, they wanted to develop the appearance of each of the Fat Albert Gang's characters. So for this, Ken Mundy relied on animator Ambi Paliwoda, who is a former Disney artist. Paliwoda not only created all of the Fat Albert Gang's characters, but also painted a group portrait, which was eventually shown on the front page of TV Guide magazine shortly before the showing of the special. The special has a very different style from the later series. As a stylistic choice, the animators drew directly onto cells with grease pencils, and actual footage of Philadelphia were used for backgrounds. So it's like this kind of like animated live action mixture type thing. Cosby did not like the character designs that were used in this special, and Mundy basically says, like, Bill Cosby wanted the protagonist to look more fun. They look more, I guess, like, typical or, like, realistic kids in the special. Unlike the later Cosby Kids series and specials, that original Fat Albert special has never been released on DVD, and it was actually considered lost media, with only brief and limited clips available online, until February 2024, when an audio recording is surfaced online, and then in July 2024, a user uploads a complete recording of the special to YouTube, where basically they were able to track down the footage and then sync it up with the audio that was found in February to basically reignite this media, which is super interesting because there's very few stories of partially or completely lost media being able to be completely reconstructed in this way. So the NBC special is pretty successful, and the producers want to bring Fat Albert to Saturday morning cartoons. At first, the network programming managers are sort of skeptical and reject the idea because they think that the premise is too educational. So Bill Cosby goes to...
They were like, we can't have kids learning that much. That would be ridiculous. Kids hate knowledge. That's disgusting.
Yeah, they're like, kids are not going to want to learn anything. These kids do not want educational lessons.
I yearn for Fetch with Rough Men.
So Bill Cosby gets a new production company, and they take the Fat Albert concept to CBS, who is like, yeah, fuck it, sure, we like education. So the Fat Albert Gang's character images were primarily created by artist Randy Haller with the assistance of one-time Disney animator Michelle McKinney under the direction of Ken Brown. So they retitled the show Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, and the series premieres in 1972, and they continued to produce the show for 12 years. They produce a ton of holiday specials. There's a holiday one, there's a Halloween one, a Christmas one, and an Easter one. What I think is interesting about the show is that it has an adult laugh track. So they do things and then just adults laugh like it's like a live sitcom. And it is sometimes jarring and sometimes inappropriate. Like, there's a clip where Fat Albert confronts a racist gang member, and the gang member says something racist, and then the audience laughs.
It's because racism is hilarious.
It's just really weird.
And that's the educational lesson from that episode.
Yeah. So, Fat Albert himself is based on Bill Cosby's childhood friend, Albert Robertson. He's the main character in the series. He's sort of the conscience of, oh my fucking god! It's fine.
The conch shell of the series.
He's the conch shell of the Junkyard Gang. He is very fat, but he is also very athletic, and he enjoys playing sports. He wears a little red sweater and blue pants. Fat Albert is considered very civic-minded and wise beyond his years. He's all about improving the community and doing what's right for other people. And really, he is like this character whose whole thing is that he kind of maintains the integrity of the group. And in the band, of course, he's also the lead singer, and he plays a bagpipe accordion.
Why the hell does he play the bagpipes?
Because it's made from a funnel, a radiator, and an airbag. And it looks funny.
A fat man playing the bagpipes.
Hate crime. There's many other characters in Fat Albert's gang. So some of them, we got Mushmouth, who wears a red knit hat and a blue scarf. And he speaks in, I think it's Ubby Dubby, which is an actual language game that you do with the English language. So basically, Ubby Dubby works by adding an ub before each vowel sound in a syllable. It's actually really hard for me to explain, and it took me a minute to wrap my mind around it. So the stress falls on the of the syllable that is stressed in the original word. So like if you say hello, which is stressed on the low syllable, the stress falls on the lub in hubba-lubbo is what you would say instead of hello. Does this make any sense?
It makes sense. I understand what's happening linguistically here. I'm just like, sure.
It's just like impossible for me to actually understand. But yeah, basically, so Mushmouth is just a guy who just just speaks like that.
I just don't know that I could, like, be chill. I don't even like it when people do the thing where they put W's and everything.
Yeah.
Please!
We got Dumb Donald, who's a lanky, dumb guy. His whole thing is
Thank God. That would suck if he was smart and they called him Dumb Donald.
Yeah, he's the one who, he wears the cap over his face, the pink knit cap.
Yeah.
I like that in the movie, there's a scene where he takes off the cap and he's a very handsome man underneath.
Well, and again, thank God.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was ugly and dumb.
I know. He also becomes Smart Donald in the movie. He reads 22 volumes of African American literature. That's like the only joke I laughed at, is that he's like, I am no longer Dumb Donald.
He's ascended.
We got Root. He's just Donald.
No. He passed over. He went, oh, Donald. And then he read 2 more volumes of it, went, oh, and now he's Smart Donald.
Yes. We got Rudy, who's a sharp-dressed, smooth-talking, smart aleck who gets into trouble. He's usually the one who, if the fucking Fat Albert gang is getting into some shit, it's probably because Rudy's being cocky and dismissive and being himself. He probably has the most different personality in the movie, because his personality in the Fat Albert movie is like being a kind and chivalrous gentleman, which is like the opposite of his character in the cartoon, and they just never address that because, sure. We got Bucky, who, as his name indicates, he has a large overbite. We got
Is he also a beaver?
Nah, he just got buck teeth.
Okay.
We got Old Weird Harold, who's just tall and skinny.
Is he old?
He's not. He's the same age as the other kids.
I'd be so mad if my nickname indicated that I was like some old weird man hanging around my friends. I already sometimes feel that way because I'm like 6 months older than a lot of my friends, so I'm often like right above them in age, and sometimes I feel like I'm old and weird for hanging out with my friends who are 26 and a half instead of 27.
I'm 29.
Well, that's because you're old and weird.
I'm old weird Aubrey.
Yeah.
That's what everybody calls me.
Me making sure that I'm 27. I'm 27? Yeah, that's how old I am.
I think there's other characters I'm forgetting, but those are the ones that I find interesting, so those are who I'm talking about.
And fuck the rest of them.
Fuck the rest of the Fat Albert characters. So, basically...
Are there any girls in the gang?
Not in the gang. It's for the boys.
Boys' night.
Yeah. I think there are girls in the show, but they are like periphery to the gang.
They don't have like an anybody's, like in the West Side Story where there's one girl who really wants to hang out with all the boys.
No, not really. Not that I saw, at least.
No tomboy representation.
No. During each episode, Fat Albert and his friends, they usually deal with an issue or a problem that's commonly faced by children. So this can be stuff like stage fright, first loves, getting surgery,
racist gang members.
To more serious themes, like vandalism, stealing, racism, rape, smoking, being scammed by con artists, sexually transmitted diseases, child abuse, kidnapping, drug use, gun violence, and death.
Lit.
Fat Albert has some fucking heavy moments.
Yeah.
At the end of most episodes, except for when they're like really fucking serious, they sing a song about the theme of the day. They don't do that with the drug use. They do that with like the stage fright. They understand something about tone.
I do also like, I sort of lightly dunked on it a little bit just there, but I do think it's good to have a way to teach children about serious topics because like they do affect them earlier than we think. And like teaching kids about like consent at a young age, sexual or not, just like if you don't want someone to touch you or do something to you, like you should be able to say no. Teaching kids about that at a young age is like extremely important. And so it is good that they brushed on some of those topics. Wild if you think you're going to be watching an episode about like stage fright and then it's the episode about being in a gang.
Yeah, I have a couple of notes about some of the more serious Fat Albert episodes. So we've got one episode called Busted, which features the kids having a brush with the law, and then they're given a Scared Straight style tour of an occupied maximum security prison.
A great place for children, where they should be.
Yeah.
Lock up all the kids, actually. Get them all in there.
And they're all black boys, which is...
Never mind. Hey, that's bad. Keep them out of there. That's
I heard
actually
what
a really
Mackenna
big
said.
issue in the legal system where they try young black men as adults more often than young white men. So don't do that, in fact.
Yeah. We've also got the episode Gang Wars, which literally features a child being shot and killed by gang violence.
And this aired on like a Saturday morning.
Hey, hey, hey!
Yo, I do think that would have fucked me up as a kid. I remember the episode of Degrassi when Drake got shot, and that fucked me up.
Yeah. So, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids gets an Emmy nomination in 1974. It does quite well. I keep trying to emphasize how fucking successful this show was. Basically, the final season overlaps with the start of The Cosby Show, which starts in 1984. Basically, it seems like Bill Cosby just kind of transitions out of Fat Albert and into The Cosby Show. And really, for the most part, after 1984, Fat Albert is not super culturally relevant, right? Like, there's a 2012 commercial with Fat Albert where it's like a Super Bowl ad for MetLife, and they just are there. But I think probably the biggest attempt at the Fat Albert comeback was with the 2003 Fat Albert movie, which, Mackenna, I'm now going to describe to you of whether you like it or not.
Okay. I will say, I wonder if it was trying to do a comeback versus like the thing that's happening a lot now, and I do think really did start in the early 2000s, which was like trying to just prey on people's nostalgia with movies. And so this feels perhaps like that's what it was trying to be like, that thing you used to love is now a movie, a live action movie. Like, I feel that way about like all of the Disney live action stuff.
I think this is slightly different because in the 90s and 2000s, there was this wave of it was a lot of 60s and 70s remakes, but it was sort of retold in a modern, self-aware, like, haha, we're kind of poking fun at this way. Like, I'm thinking like Charlie's Angels, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Scooby-Doo, the Brady Bunch movie, where it's like this premise of like, this old property, but now it's the millennium.
Totally. I just don't know if the goal, I mean, Alvin and the Chipmunks had fucking worked out, but I don't know if I know that the goal was like to like revamp the entire, or like, I guess it's to revamp the entire IP.
Why I keep thinking that this might be the case for Fat Albert is because so the opening of the Fat Albert movie is in the Fat Albert cartoon universe, and the animation is spectacular. Like, it's impressively well animated, and there's only like 3 animated scenes throughout the movie, and just the way that it's done, it just gives me this sense of like, oh, this feels like this is actually the backdoor pilot to a Fat Albert animated show, akin to maybe like a Proud Family kind of vibe.
But also Recess was on at that time, and Recess kind of, I think, was doing a lot of what Fat Albert did.
I think so, but that's just why I get the sense of like, I feel like the intent of making the Fat Albert movie was like, how do we make Fat Albert relevant for children in the 2000s?
Totally.
And create.
Oh, so you think it was geared towards kids, not towards like adult nostalgia?
Oh no, it was absolutely geared. It is a children's movie.
Okay.
Like there's literally no jokes in it that are like wink wink for the parents. Like
I see.
It's solely for like specifically, I think, children under 10.
I see.
And that's why I think the movie fucking sucks, is that it's...
Because you're not 10 years old?
It really, like, I think so. Like, it's the opposite of a convoluted plot, where it just is so simple that it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
So basically, you know, we've got this opening, this nice animated opening with Fat Albert and the gang. They're singing a song. The song sounds great. And we get our main character in the real world named Doris, who, I forget the name of the actress, but she's the actress who voices Penny Proud on
Kyla
The Proud
Pratt.
Family. Yeah, Kyla Pratt. She's gorgeous. Josh had a big crush on her when he was a kid. So did I, because I think she was on the Bernie Mac show, which I also loved as a kid. And am I wrong? I hope I'm not wrong.
She was not on the Bernie Mac show.
No!
She was in the Dr. Dolittle movies.
Oh, that's probably what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I did also like the girl in the Bernie Mac show. So we open up on our main girl, Doris, and Doris is crying because her foster sister, Lori, is super popular, and Doris is lonely because she's got no fucking friends. And Doris has no fucking friends because she doesn't want any fucking friends, and she's not fucking nice to anyone in this entire movie. So Doris does not learn any lessons about making friends. That's my issue number one. So anyway, Doris is fucking lonely because she sucks, and then she goes home and she watches Fat Albert. And she cries on the remote, and it creates a magical portal that Fat Albert can hear. And basically, Fat Albert is like, fuck it, I'm going into the real world, and I gotta help this girl who's crying. So they all go through the portal, and they all go through Doris's TV, and oh shit, now they're in the fucking real world. So I want to say that this happens incredibly quickly. Within 5 minutes of the movie, Fat Albert is in the real world. So,
and this is where we get the Kenan Thompson fat suit?
Yes. So as soon as Fat Albert exits the TV, it's Kenan Thompson in a fat suit. I think that the thing that I like the most about this movie is that I think the costumes are really well done, and they are incredibly charming. Like, the whole Fat Albert gang, they all look very cute this entire movie, and that's fine. So basically, they all come out. Doris is like, what the fuck? You're Fat Albert. And they like go and drink some soda pop, and then they try to go back into the other room. And oh no, the Fat Albert show is over, and it's not going to be back on until 2:30 the next day. So fucking Fat Albert is, the whole crew is fucking stuck. So Doris immediately wants them to go back, even though she's a loser with no friends, and now all these guys are like, we want to be your friends, and she's like, fuck you guys.
I'll say, in Doris's defense, if a bunch of strange men emerged from my TV and said, we want to be your friends, if I had no friends, I think I might prefer no friends to a bunch of strange men who just walked out of my television.
My other issue I have with this movie is that, canonically, Fat Albert is a well-known cartoon in this universe because it's the real world, yet all of these characters come out wearing the iconic Fat Albert clothes, and for the majority of the movie, nobody is like, hey, you guys are all dressed up like Fat Albert.
Because that would be inconvenient for the plot.
They're just like, these guys are a bunch of weirdos. And it's like, they're a bunch of guys dressed up as the Fat Albert characters.
That's not important. Well, but Aubrey, if it's your argument, maybe not everyone's watching. Well, no, because the Fat Albert show's on TV in this universe still.
Yes!
Plot convenience. Plot convenience.
So anyway, Doris brings everybody to school, and she talks to the teacher, and she's like, I've got friends who are visiting. And the teacher's just like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. They can just hang out in here.
There's like, what, 9 of them?
Yes!
That's crazy.
No, I know. Literally every joke in this is just them being like, what's a cell phone? What's a computer? And it's like, haha, they don't know what the technology is, because they're a 70s cartoon. And Fat Albert sees Doris's foster sister Lori, immediately heart eyes emoji. He's in love with Lori. There's this guy Reggie who's really into Lori, so he just starts immediately dunking on Fat Albert. By the way, Reggie is played by R&B singer Omarion, if you know the song Birthday Sex.
That's great. Thank God. Thank God this was his breakout acting role. I don't know if it was.
It probably was. Also, Omarion is 4 feet tall because Kenan Thompson is towering over him in this movie, and Kenan Thompson is 5'9", allegedly. And allegedly, Omarion is 5'6". That is not true, because Kenan Thompson is like a fucking foot taller.
Any actor who says they're 5'6" is actually like 5'4" or 5'3".
Yes. So anyway,
Thomas Cruise.
Enemy. So anyway, Reggie is like, oh, so also Lori and Doris are on the track team. That's like their thing, is they do track. And Reggie is like, Fat Albert, you're so fucking fat. I challenge you to a race, fat boy. And Fat Albert fucking wrecks his shit because he's Fat Albert and he knows how to run.
Do you know who was on the Bernie Mac show?
Who?
Omarion.
Oh my god. He was trying to, he really had to get put on. There's like a few mentions of Fat Albert's fatness in the movie Fat Albert. So like Fat Albert is talking to the gang about how he's got a crush on Lori. And he's like, even though I'm fat, isn't it the person that matters and not how they look? And the whole gang is just like shifty eyes. And I'm like, wow, you guys didn't even put on for your boy just then. But Lori is like into Fat Albert too. She's fucking feeling him.
Aubrey, would you consider Kenan Thompson fat as the deemer of fat people?
Let me see a recent picture of Kenan Thompson. I think probably back in the days, yeah.
Because, like, I was just thinking about your point from the last episode that, like, fat suits tend to be more okay when it's a fat person already. It's not a skinny person being turned into a fat person, but a person who is already fat then being put into, like, an additional fat suit. And I feel like this probably falls into that category, which might be part of why it doesn't feel as bothersome as other fat suits.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kenan Thompson's a bigger guy. I think he's probably fat. I mean, fat can also be kind of
Aubrey,
nebulous.
this is your job.
I
can't say if someone's fat. You have to do it.
I mean, what I'll say is, like, I think Kenan Thompson was definitely a, like, fatter, younger guy, probably as opposed to what he looks like right now, this second in 2025.
Yeah.
Especially in, like, Kenan and Kel type days. And this was only a year before Kenan Thompson started on SNL.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh my god, wait, that's crazy to think about. He's been on SNL for so long.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's why the fat suit feels okay to me, because he is somebody who is already larger, and it's like, yeah, you have to, like, you could have casted somebody with a Fat Albert build, which actually, when I was reading about the production of this movie, they did an open casting call in, like, multiple cities to try to find an unknown actor to be Fat Albert. Then they just were like, fuck it, Kenan Thompson it is.
That's happened twice now recently with theater productions where they've claimed to be doing an open call for the leads and then cast people who are already Broadway names.
Love that. I love that. Was it sincere? Who knows? So basically, the gang, they run into some cheerleaders later, and they're like, we want you to be friends with Doris. And they're like, come to our party tonight. And it's like implied that they're just being kind of bitchy. But anyway, then they go to the mall, and it's just, this movie has like 20 montages. Like, it's a scene and then it's a montage. So they go to the mall, and it's like, haha, they don't know what modern mall culture is like. And yeah, there's a fat joke where Fat Albert sits on the couch and the couch tips. The whole underlying plot line is that the guys are losing color, so their costumes are becoming less saturated the longer they stay in the human world. So it's kind of Back to the Future logic where they're like fading out of existence. Doris comes out in a dress for the party, and everyone except Fat Albert is like, hubba hubba, Doris is hot. They try to embarrass Fat Albert at the party, like the cheerleaders and stuff, but then Fat Albert sings, and it's an incredibly long musical sequence where they have him rap at some point, and it's really bad, but one of his bars is about how he never wants to get skinny, and I love that. I love that for me.
I feel like with the thing that you were talking about with Doris, like just kind of being annoying and like mean, and that's why she doesn't have any friends, is I feel like there's a plot in 30 Rock where Liz Lemon, Tina Fey's character, is like, yeah, I didn't have any friends in high school. Everyone was really mean to me. But then she goes to her high school reunion and it's revealed that she was just an asshole and everyone didn't like her because she was an asshole and she was the one who was mean to them. And that's why she didn't have any friends. And that feels a little bit like sort of what the starting point of this film is it's like, no, you're just mean.
Yeah, it's just, but no one ever says that. Like, no one ever points out, like, Doris, actually, to have friends, you gotta be a friend.
Yeah.
And Doris is repeatedly like, I'd rather just be alone. So then at the party, Reggie tries to dance with Doris to make Lori jealous. jealous, and Doris is like, sure. But then Reggie tries to kiss her without her consent, and she's like, please don't do that. And then the Fat Albert gang threatens Reggie with violence.
Oh, I forgot that Reggie wasn't a member of the Fat Albert gang for a second, and I was like, what the hell is the okay, all right, I understand.
Yeah, so Rudy, who's in the gang, the one who's like the suave, smooth talker in the show, he has a crush on her in real life. So when she goes to dance with Reggie, Rudy is like, oh, she doesn't like me. Yeah, Fat Albert walks Lori home. Every note that I have about a scene with Lori is that the actress who plays her is like porn level acting. Like, it is just horrible. Just genuinely... I'm sorry. I'm sure you're a nice lady. She's very pretty. She looks like a Jessica Alba knockoff, but she's very bad at acting.
Oh.
There's yet another montage where they're at the playground. Mushmouth learns to talk because a little white girl is like, say it correctly, and then he does.
That's a microaggression.
But what's worse is then he goes up to the mom and he's like, ma'am, your daughter helped me say the word balloon. Thank you very much. And he says it like very eloquently. And then the mom is like, honey, get away from that man.
That's a macroaggression.
It's just aggression.
Yeah.
Throughout, as they get less and less saturated, their costumes get lighter and lighter. That I found interesting, and I was like, okay, that's all right. So the show is back on because it's only the next day, and like three of the gang.
Oh my god!
I know. This movie takes place in 48 hours.
Holy shit! Okay.
So then the show's back on, and like half of the gang goes through the TV, but then Fat Albert and Rudy and Mushmouth and then this other member of the gang named Bill, they stay because Fat Albert and Rudy want to go on a double date to the fair with Doris and Lori. And so they do. There's a crazy deep line that dumb Donald says, because now he's smart Donald, before he goes back into the TV, where he just goes, when you try to be something different from who you are, you lose the essence of who you really are. And then he goes back into the TV and is dumb Donald again. Okay. So that's a bit of an existential nightmare.
Great.
So finally, when they're at the fucking fair, some little kid is like, you're Fat Albert. And he's like, yeah. And then the kid's dad is like, get away from that man. So yeah, it just fucking keeps going on, right? There's a random aggression that Lori does where Doris is like, oh yeah, well, so Lori is like, oh, do the guys want to eat anything? And Doris is like, no, they don't eat. Because apparently, because they're cartoons, even in the real world, they don't eat. And then Lori just goes, Fat Albert sure looks like he eats. So he just catches a fucking stray for no reason.
From his love interest, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, Fat Albert...
Is she saying it in like a, he sure looks like he eats, or is she being like, he sure looks like he eats, fat ass? Like, what's the tone?
I think it's meant to be the first one, but again, it's really bad acting, so it just sounds like the second one.
I see.
Yeah. So anyway, then Fat Albert goes to Bill Cosby's house because he just knows where he lives.
Of course, because everyone knows where Bill Cosby lives.
Bill Cosby sees Fat Albert and faints. Sadly, he doesn't die immediately, as I wish he did. Bill Cosby then reveals that Fat Albert is based on Albert Robertson, and that Doris is Albert Robertson's granddaughter. Huh. And that's why Doris has a foster sister, so that Fat Albert can have a love interest that's not incestuous.
I see.
Yeah. Because the whole time, I'm like, why are all the guys, like, fucking hubba over Doris, except for Fat Albert? And then I'm like, oh, because that's incest.
But, like, is it? Sorry, not to do the opposite of the thing that we did in the Android episode where you questioned if the data and lore thing would be incest. He's not the real guy. He's just based on the guy. Like, he's a completely separate entity.
Yeah, like
really interesting that the movie decides, like, no, the incest taboo would apply, and it's like, why?
Because
I think it's good for overall for that to be true, but it just feels weird.
It's fucking weird if you think about it for more than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anyone in any part of this movie thought about anything for that long.
Okay.
So Bill Cosby tells Fat Albert that if he doesn't go back to the cartoon world, he'll turn into celluloid dust.
Why would Bill Cosby know that?
That's literally...
He feeds upon seeing Fat Albert, then he understands the logistics of interdimensional travel.
That's literally the next thing I wrote in the notes was literally what you said. So then Fat Albert is like, hey, Lori, I gotta leave. I'm Fat Albert, and I'm gonna fucking turn into celluloid dust if I stay.
I want a shirt that says that. I'm Fat Albert, and I'm gonna turn into celluloid dust.
Merch? And so Lori's response to that is like, every time someone tells me they care about me, they leave. And
kill yourself so that you can be with me. Kill yourself.
Literally. And I'm like, Fat Albert, it has been not even 48 hours. Just fucking leave. Like, it's fine. Like, let a woman be upset.
I love when Aubrey gets a little misogynistic on Maine.
And so anyway, the next day, there's a track meet. So Doris and Lori go to the track meet, but then they come back for a minute and they're like, all right, guys, everybody go. There's a fucking sad ass scene where Mushmouth is like, when I get back, I'm going to talk normally and no one will make fun of me anymore. And then he goes in and immediately starts speaking ooby dooby again. Or ubby dubby or whatever the fucking thing is. But it's just played as like a haha, that's funny. And I'm like, this is horrifying. Doris is finally like...
He went back into the TV and he got his like disability back. That's like very... That puts that like line earlier about like you can't be anything other than what you are into like a really strange context. It's like you will never overcome your speech impediment. It's a part of you.
Yeah. So Doris is like, Fat Albert, it feels like I've known you for a long time.
Because you're my grandpa.
Literally. And then Fat Albert is like, I gotta stay so Doris can believe in herself. And so everyone goes through the TV except Fat Albert. He's like, I gotta fucking come through for Doris. And then he turns off the TV in what is presumably an act of suicide. And so then he runs over to the track meet and then he encourages Doris to win, even though Doris just hears Fat Albert's encouragement in her head. So I'm like, there was actually no reason for him to suicide over this. So then Fat Albert is fucking dying over by the snack stand at the track meet, and then, haha, he falls onto a skateboard, and then there's a goofy skateboarding scene. And
he's dying?
Yeah, basically. And then Lori and Doris are running after him, but it doesn't fucking matter because they all get to the house at the same time anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, they get back to the house, they turn on the TV, and so basically they get to the house. Lori has been like, he's not Fat Albert, he's just fucking capping. But then Bill comes halfway through the TV, and then she screams, and she's like, holy shit, you're actually Fat Albert. And it's like, damn bitch, where have you been? We've been telling you this. And then fucking
to defend Lori now. I get it. I'd be like, are you all having a group hallucination?
At one point, Lori's like, I think they're in a cult. And that is funny. So fucking Doris is like, Fat Albert, I finally know who you remind me of. You remind me of my grandpa. And then he's like, I love you, Doris. And Doris is like, I love you, Fat Albert, grandpa. And then... haha, he gets stuck through the TV because he's got a big belly, so then they have to push him through to get him back to the cartoon world. You know, I just... Sure, maybe they fucking change the channel and the girl from The Ring comes out next. I don't fucking know.
You said that in the original show there's not a lot of jokes about like fat shaming jokes. And it feels like the movie has a lot of fat shaming jokes.
The movie is like weirdly fat shamey because I think it's a product of that whole context we were talking about in episode 1 about just fat suits and fat jokes and how people treated fat people.
Yeah.
So anyway, Fat Albert goes back into the Fat Albert universe. He talks to this girl who's like, I don't want to be close to anybody. And Fat Albert goes, you can't let fear keep you from caring about someone because caring about someone is wonderful. It's fantastic to know there's someone out there in the world thinking about you. Which, sure, that's a theme. And then we cut to real-life Bill Cosby and the real-life versions of the gang at the real Fat Albert's grave. leaving flowers at the real Albert Robertson's grave. And then they all walk away, and then Doris is in the background watching this scenario fondly, and thankfully Bill Cosby doesn't see her, because I don't want Bill Cosby to see any women ever again.
Apparently Aaron Carter was in this movie.
Are you fucking kidding me? I watched this last night.
Apparently he plays a teen.
Okay, he's probably in like one scene.
Also, apparently this movie was originally supposed to be made with Tracy Morgan in the 90s, and then no one wanted to make it. So that's what...
Oh, yes. Aaron Carter is in like one scene. I looked up what he looks like. It's literally like a one scene joke.
Oh. And then I guess this was in development hell for 10 years and then eventually got made.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that no one wanted to make it.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, the whole time I was watching it, I kept thinking, like, the real life plot sucks dick, but... But the animated movie is actually kind of good, because there's this whole little scene where the little character, Rudy, who's like the little brother, he gets left behind, and then like the bullies are like, oh, we're gonna take the junkyard. And I cannot stress enough, it is so well animated. And I'm like, if this was just like, we're just gonna make an animated show that's like, or an animated movie.
Like just literally rebooting the TV show.
Yeah, that probably would have been enjoyable, versus this weird, like, shoehorned, like, he's in the real world and he can be here, but not for too long. And isn't it funny that he doesn't know what a cell phone is? It's like, huh?
Does it upset you, Aubrey, to know that Roger Ebert gave this a 2 out of 4 stars and gave Tommy Boy a 1 out of 4?
That is insane to me. Because the Fat Albert movie is... If I was not watching it for the podcast, I would have just turned it off. It's straight up unwatchable. My Letterboxd review was just, this fucking sucks. I couldn't even be quippy. It's just bad. So, I don't know. I know this was a little bit of a weird episode, but I just thought, I find the Fat Albert character interesting because, like, Fat Albert himself is, like, a very positive depiction of a fat person, yet in the real-life adaptation of him, he still is a very positive character, but then he's in this new context of people just fucking dunking on his body a lot, and it's bad.
Well, I think it contextualizes the whole thing that we were talking about last episode about, like, this time in the 90s and early 2000s where, like, cheap laughs about fat people were very popular, and that, like, it became, like, a real comedy trope from, like, the late 90s through, like, I would say early 2010s, because there was this era where it was like, sort of like fat people weren't people, so they were easy to dehumanize and make fun of in media. And I think that we are sort of finally getting away from that in a lot of regards, but it was decades of like, wouldn't it be funny to put a skinny actor in a fat suit? Wouldn't it be funny to just make fun of this fat person? Wouldn't it be funny to, like, the Fat Monica thing, like, treat, like, getting skinny as, like, such a relief, as opposed to just admitting that there are people who are fat who have no interest in losing weight.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, taking something from the 60s and 70s that just had a character who was fat as a fact of life and putting him into this context in the 90s and 2000s where it was fun to dunk on fat people, and that was the trend at the time, just shows that, like, fat phobia was a little bit worse then.
Yeah. And, like, I love the Brady Bunch movie from the 90s. I think that it genuinely is one of my favorite comedies. I think it's hilarious because the whole premise of it is like, let's take this piece of media from the 1960s about, this idyllic family and put them in California in the 90s and use that as a way to juxtapose how this idyllic family is kind of creepy and weird and doesn't make any sense in the real world. And it's very funny to see that played comedically. Fat Albert is just so different because it's like, they try to do that with a little bit of the, like, we don't know what a laptop is, but there's nothing grounding it in, like, why does it matter that it's Fat Albert in 2004? It's like, because a fat person can't exist and have friends in 2004?
Nope. Illegal.
I guess not. All right, that's the end
literally
of this
a crime.
So, yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts about Fat Albert? attraction. I mean, I like that he has a love interest, and she doesn't.
Do they do a kiss?
Oh my god, do they do a kiss? I don't think they do like a real kiss. They do their date.
Maybe she was underage at the time or something, and they were like, we can't have them kiss.
I don't think so. She looks like she is 30 years old.
My final thought on this would be that this is not a piece of media that I have any like form of nostalgia for, and so I don't know if I would, I don't think I'm going to watch this movie based on Aubrey's review, is what I'll say.
No.
I wonder if it would be something that would be like, I would be curious to talk to someone who was like a fan of the TV show as a kid and then watched this movie and what that experience was like for them. Because I can imagine that it would probably be actually very jarring. And I actually don't think this movie works unless you have nostalgia for the TV show, because you would have to be excited by the idea of these like characters you know and love coming out of the TV. So I actually don't think that this works as a reboot, because you would have to have nostalgia for the property in order for it to be exciting to see them be live action.
Yeah.
And so, like it's not good nostalgia bait. It's not good reboot for a new audience, because it sort of didn't honor the ethos of the original thing, but also is so reliant upon nostalgia for Bill Cosby and for the TV show and the character for you to then like engage with this movie. And so like for kids, it's not really going to be enjoyable. And for adults, it's not really going to be enjoyable. So I think this movie just didn't really have an audience, except for people who maybe like hate fat people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie that's designed for children, that is presumably to get them invested in the Fat Albert character, but they don't actually like really introduce the characters at any point. So you have to have this understanding of who the characters are and their like little shtick before you can even really engage with it, right? Because it's like, they don't go like, oh, Mushmouth, his whole thing is that he talks in this like interesting vocal game. It's like, so without that, he's just this guy who's like kind of saying stuff and you don't really understand it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, next week, we're going to talk about a movie that won Oscars. So different. So it has to be good, right?
It has to be good. You know, my Twitter was blowing up at the time that The Whale released. And I decided I will not be participating in this dialogue. But I have decided it is time.
Aubrey loves to jump into discourse 5 to 10 years too late.
I do, because if I've got an opinion about it while it's happening, it's not going to be cooked. It's going to be half-baked.
I've never been so jump scared in my life than when I was watching Killers of a Flower Moon, and 2 hours and 45 minutes into a 3.5 hour long movie, Brendan Fraser suddenly was playing Leonardo DiCaprio's lawyer, the lawyer for, I can't remember whose lawyer he is. He's playing someone's lawyer, and he just starts screaming, and he's like, and you never see him until this moment, and then he just shoots up on the screen and is like, we object! And it's like, holy fuck, what is Brendan Fraser doing here?
I had no idea that there was a Brendan Fraser. I'm not even going to call it a jump scare. I'm going to call it a happy surprise.
No, jump scare.
I love Brendan Fraser.
I love Brendan Fraser too. This was a jump scare. Because you spend 2 hours and 45 minutes of the movie being like, getting invested in characters and seeing characters and not seeing actors. Like, the movie made me forget I was looking at Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. And then suddenly I am looking at Brendan Fraser, and I got ripped out of that movie. It's not Brendan's fault. It's the movie's fault.
Well, and I think that's how we're probably going to feel about The Whale. So stay tuned for next week, everybody. Bye.
Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.